another language. Duolingo!
Look no feather! I'm going to show you how to use Duolingo for schools. I'm Madame Sensei. I teach Spanish, French, and Japanese out here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And today I'm going to show you something really hugely exciting. This is the new CSV in the new updated Duolingo for Schools, which is going to put you up to your eyeballs in all the data you could possibly want for any formative assessment or for your teacher evaluations that I know we all have to do. So I am not very good at making videos, so I've taken screenshots because it's much easier for me to do this than to blur out all my students' names on the videos. Look, I'd much rather spend my time learning how to teach than learning how to make videos. So you're stuck with screenshots right now. So anyway, you're going to get into your Duolingo classroom. All right, any classroom you want. And then right up here where it says Manage Classroom, click there. And this middle one says Export Student Activity. You want to click right here to get your CSV, your beautiful CSV. All right, so here we go. See, I've blurred out all my students' names, but here's mine. I put myself in every single class so that I can make sure that I'm getting all the emails, so that I see the assignments in the upper right corner, so that I know what's going on in my own class. I highly suggest you put yourself in your classrooms too. So here we go, a little snippet of one of my classrooms, and you can see we've got, obviously everyone's in the same language in every single classroom. You set your language and everyone's there. Then we've got their streaks, their total XP, their time spent, how many lessons they've done, level tests. We'll talk about each of these things in a moment. I've made them bigger for you. First thing, let me talk about what each of those columns is. You've got your full name of your student, which now that it's in a CSV, you can alphabetize it. You got your username of your student. Again, you can alphabetize by that if you want. Then the email. Now, in my school district, we have student's last name first, and so it's easy to alphabetize that too, and my colleague uses that to put grades in. He will always alphabetize by email, and that way he can go bang, 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 and the grades are in the same order in the grade book that they are on the CSV. Classroom language, obviously, you set your classroom language when you create your classroom. Streak, okay, this is a big deal to me. My students love competing on their streaks, and I have promised them at the end of the year that the student with the best streak gets my beautiful little Duolingo plushie. So they are really, really interested in keeping that their streak. And it is so easy for me to see their streak now. It's so simple to just, bam, go to the CSV, I can see their streak. It tells me the student's total XP. One of our great colleagues on the Duolingo Educator Network, hi Kathy, she used to put up bulletin boards around her room, and she had these cute little owl cutouts that she got from the dollar store. And she'd write the students' names on the owls, and then as the students get more XP, they'd move their owls around the room so you could see at a glance where all the XP was. And so this is an easy, easy way to do that. You'll be able to see the time spent. How much are your students actually spending on Duolingo? You can tell now there's a timestamp. Isn't that wonderful? And you can tell how many lessons they've done. So lessons refers to, we've got your Duolingo tree here, all right? And I highly suggest that you as a teacher, you do some lessons yourself also so that you know what your students are experiencing. Each one of these is a skill, and each skill is going to have different levels of the skill, and each level is going to have 4 or 5 lessons per that level, okay? So this will tell you how many lessons your students do. All right, nothing else I want to show on that page. Then we have also level test. Okay, now this is a very handy thing. So here I am in my French tree, right over here. And let me move it more to the middle of the screen. So they've just updated French. They just added another 100 million lessons for it. And, you know, I like to model for my students, so I want to get them all golden. And so for me to go through and do all these lessons I don't really have time. I want to teach, right? So I just go over here and I click on this little key symbol right here, and I can test out of the lessons. Now, maybe you'll have a student come to you and maybe they've already taken some language at another school and they don't want to start over at the beginning of Duolingo, or maybe they're heritage speakers and they speak the language at home, but they don't know how to read and write it. You can have them test out of any skills that you think this is too boring for you. Just click on the test out button. So that's what that means. That data will show you. Skill practice. So once you've done a lesson and you've gotten it to gold, there's no more lessons. What you can do is you can click on this button right here that says practice. And so that's what I normally do for myself, because normally I've got my trees all golden. So you can have your students at any point, you say, you know what, I know you finished this, but you need a little more practice. Will you go back and hit the practice button? So that's what that skill practice does. And then level review is another one of those types of buttons. Stories, you'll see up at the top bar. If you're lucky enough to have French, Spanish, Japanese, German, Portuguese, I think they've just rolled out stories for Italian. At the top bar, if you're lucky enough to have stories, click on that stories button, and your CSV will tell you how many stories your students have done. Okay, you can get more detailed information when you click on your student to see which specific stories they've done, but this will tell you at a glance how many stories they've done. If you're in a language that doesn't have stories yet, be sure to check out Learn Through Stories on the forum and find out how to look at the unofficial translations of stories. Those are cool. And then there's practice. Practice is this little dumbbell in the lower corner. So in the lower left corner of your tree, there'll be a little dumbbell, and if you click on that, you get to a special practice session of things you haven't looked at in a while. Okay, and so all those things, you'll be able to see what your students have done. Okay, so let's go look at my data, because I put myself in my French classes, in my Spanish classes, in my Japanese classes, and I've got one more class I'll show you, just so that we can compare the data across the classes and you can get a better idea of what's going on here. All right, so our first column is streak. There's my streak. Total XP. This is my total XP for French. Okay, so this is really neat that I can see, because I do have students who like to double dip. I do have students that I'm able to infect with this really cool language nerdy bug that we have. And it's very nice to be able to separate how much XP they have for each language. This is the total time spent. These are the lessons I've done this week. I did one lesson because I'm working my way through those new French lessons. I level tested out of this many this week, and I didn't do anything else because I was just testing out of the levels, all right? So here's me in my Japanese class. You see my streak is the same, but my XP is different because there are fewer Japanese lessons than there are French lessons. The time spent on Japanese was much less because I've got that all golden. I'm not trying to test out of anything. I'm only doing the legendary right there. The lessons, that tells me that I've done 4, and it was legendary lessons. So unfortunately right now there's no differentiation between which lessons you're doing, but it does say that I did 4 lessons. I'll tell you that they were legendary. So you can easily, when in doubt, go click on your student and get that information directly in Duolingo for Schools. All right, here's me in my Spanish class. Same streak. The XP I've gotten this week is much less. Here, this is legendary XP, so I got a lot. This is, I'm just going through regular lessons in Spanish. I'm just doing some of the higher lessons there. And this is how many minutes I've spent on it this week. And how many lessons. You can see I do 1 a day. That's what's going on. And then for funsies, I made a Mandarin class because I am very slowly working my way through Mandarin. And the only members of the Mandarin class are myself and my daughter, who also wants to put around with Mandarin. And so you can see what I'm doing here that's a little different is absolutely, it looks like absolutely nothing different, because I've spent about the same amount of time and I've gotten about the same amount of XP, and I've done 4 lessons. So because I wanted to understand the CSV better, I went back to my Spanish class, and I decided I was going to do a practice. Okay, so I did the skill practice, and sure enough, it came up right here. And then I clicked on the barbells, and then suddenly, now I have a 1 in the practice column. And if I had done a story, then obviously there'd be a story here too. Now, finally, the last thing I want to talk to you about is other ways you can use this data. I mean, obviously, you're going to use it in your formative assessments. You're going to say, oh, my students need a little more practice. Oh, my students are not getting enough XP. Oh, I see that they're all doing stories, so let's work with stories more in the classroom. I can build on that. Those are all, I mean, this data is really golden. But the other thing I'm super excited about is at the end of the year when we have to do our Duolingo evaluations, and you pull your hair out over this because it's just a bunch of hoop jumping and you would much rather be doing the fun stuff with your students, but no, you've got to sit in front of your computer and have this big write-up about how great you were this year. Now it's going to be so simple for us. Every single year, my principal asked me to make a big Excel document about my students and their growth goals and everything. And now, guess what? I don't have to create that myself. I can just go to Duolingo. I can upload it right here in our evaluations. Boom, I'm done. I can get back to the fun stuff of teaching. Questions about pedagogy and using Duolingo for schools in the Duolingo Educators Forum. You're going to get to this by up at the top bar. Learn is your regular tree. And then you go over here to these 3 dots that say more. Here's the discuss button right there. And that will take you to the Educators Forum. And you can click on new post. You can respond to somebody else's post. There's a ton of helpful people on this forum, ready to take your questions, ready to have wonderful conversations with you about education and teaching and troubleshooting. And I'm telling you, during the pandemic, this was my lifeline, being here and being able to talk to people. I'd also like to make a plug for the Duolingo Educator Network. This is a little more formal than the Educators Forum. The Educators Network meets in a group on Facebook, and we discuss pedagogy, we discuss education stuff, we have fun little movie nights and Blue Kit nights, and we just basically collaborate with people all around the world. We're the ones that Duolingo tested Duolingo for schools on. We get previews of cool stuff Duolingo's doing. This is honestly the best professional learning community I belong to. I'm telling you, during the pandemic, it was so nice to have a group of people who were experimenting alongside with me, and we were all lifting each other up during the craziness of the last year. So I highly, highly encourage you to join the Duolingo Educators Network.
Duolingo. It's the best way for you to learn another language.